All right, back for another episode of Back to the Bronze Age. I believe this is episode 13. And tonight I'm going to be talking about Avengers Annual number 10. They say it was published January of 1981. I believe it came out late 1980. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's sometime around then. I guess it doesn't really matter, but just call it January 1981. Let me get right into the book. Like I always say, the books that I talk about on this show, the prerequisite, so to speak, is that I had to have read these and purchased these as a kid at some point in time over this time period. I'm particularly just talking about comic books from right around 1973, 1974 to 1986, 1987, roughly. I won't try to stray outside of that ever. There's a ton of issues that I can cover during that time period, so I won't have any problem finding content to go over. One thing I forgot to change here. 1 second. I will be. I need to change the text of what I'm talking about here. That's kind of crazy that I forgot to do that. I just won't put anything there. How's that? All right, that's taken care of. So let's get right into the comic book itself. Let me bring up the image of the cover here. I was planning to do this all day, but it doesn't look like it. Forgot to bring up the comic book I'm going to be talking about. Okay, there we go. There's the cover. So you can see the 75 cent. The reason it's 75 cents is it's a king size annual. So a little more. I'm only going to be doing one comic book today. It's a little more. It's a little longer than I'm usually. A few more pages to read than I usually have to if I'm just covering one issue. But this probably counts as about 2 issues worth of comic books. It says right up there, 1981. Avengers Annual number 10. Now, in an earlier episode, I covered Avengers Annual number 6, which was George Perez. Today, we are going to have kind of an unusual artist. Once again, it's Chris Claremont. It's going to end up being that the majority of books I cover are going to have been written by Chris Claremont. He was all over the place during the Bronze Age. He was kind of the star writer. There were a couple others, but Chris Claremont did a vast majority of books that I really want to cover in this show. So going to be seeing a lot of Chris Claremont, a lot of John Byrne, but today it's not John Byrne and Chris Claremont, it's somebody else. So if we look at this cover is by Al Milgrom, and he's not near as talented as the guy that does the interiors here. Today we're going to be looking at the art of Michael Golden. If you don't know who Michael Golden is, if you've read any Micronauts, he did the first year that the Micronauts came out. He did a lot of covers. He did some G.I. Joe covers in the early 80s, around like 84, 85. He did the G.I. Joe yearbook. He started in comic books sometime in the late 70s. But he started at DC, but he wasn't at DC very long. I think he was on Mr. Miracle or something like that. I'm not familiar with Michael Golden's DC background that much, but I always loved his work at Marvel. He also did one issue of the original Star Wars book that I think it's issue number 35. Don't quote me on that. Something like that, where he just did a one-time art fill-in, and man, it was really good. He is tailor-made for science fiction as far as art is concerned, because he's so meticulous and detailed when he draws the draws like some of the Star Wars vehicles. It's really nice. It's really detailed, and his figure work is kind of stylized, and you'll see that in this book. I try to balance the books I talk about. I try to balance out between my love of the story and my love of the art. This book in particular, I like for the art more than the story. There's kind of a history of this story. It's kind of trying to tie up some loose ends to a kind of a notorious storyline from the Avengers, in particular in Avengers issue number 200, which was David Michelinie, Bob Layton, George Perez, and Jim Shooter are credited as doing the plots for that book. Now, Avengers 200 was supposed to be like a landmark book. You know, it was a double-sized issue or something like that, celebrating the 200th issue of the Avengers, and it just turned out terrible. Even Jim Shooter has said a decade ago in a blog post that, he didn't really want his name on that plot because he didn't think that he contributed much to that book. And he thought, to quote his words, he thought Avengers 200 was heinous. And I have to agree with him. So this book this Avengers Annual number 10 is written by Chris Claremont. And Chris Claremont and David Michelinie had a well-known feud going on at Marvel. So I think this is Chris Claremont's way of trying to tie up some loose ends of that heinous storyline from Avengers 200. So, but I'm not going to focus too much on that backstory. It's just terrible. You can, read Avengers 200 for yourself. It's not good. And unfortunately, it's kind of sad because the Avengers from 1974 to 1980 are some of the best comic books Marvel's ever produced. And kind of like the marker for the downfall of the Avengers comic book is issue 200, because it was never, in my opinion, Avengers was never good after issue 200. So, 1980, they had a couple decent issues, but, after that, but the X-Men kind of took over. And, it's a shame because David Michelinie is one of the top writers Marvel all time. He helped co-create Venom, in the late 80s with Todd McFarlane. He did the Demon in the Bottle Iron Man run. He's a renowned comic book writer. But that one blemish, and Jim Shooter, the same, who was editor-in-chief at the time that 200 was released, but he is credited with co-plotting the book, and he denies it. He's like, no. He goes, I went back and looked at that book, and it is heinous, and that's from his blog post. And he said, I don't remember contributing to that plot. That was Bob Layton, and that was more David Michelinie and Bob Layton, and with some input from George Perez. So it wasn't the most shining moment in Avengers comic book history, that issue 200. But this came after 200 the following year, and this one kind of sets it right, in my opinion, a little bit. So let's get into it. I'll yap enough about some of the backstory, but you're also going to see a first appearance of a well-known character, and you get a little hint of her right here on the cover, but it says, behold the deadly new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So you've got Avengers versus the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants here, shocking mystery guest. And this is what all the storyline kind of revolves around, is this mystery guest who turns out to be Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel. And you've got a guest appearance here by Spider-Woman. She's in the book quite a bit. And a cameo appearance, of course, by the Uncanny X-Men. So let me get into the right mode here. Welcome to the premier metropolis of the West Coast of America's gateway to the Pacific, the fabled city by the bay, San Francisco. You don't see a lot of Marvel comic stuff, especially in the 70s, based out of, on the West Coast. You did have the Champions, who are kind of the LA's kind of Los Angeles's version of the Avengers, but that comic book really didn't stick around that long. Says linking the city and Marin County across the mouth of the harbor of one of the most famous and beautiful bridges in the world, the Golden Gate. And as you can see, you see a woman falling here, and we'll get to the credits. The credits, I believe, are at the bottom of the page. It's been a while since I've read through this book. It's probably been a couple years since I remember rereading this a couple years ago when I first got my Marvel Unlimited subscription. So in the nearly 50 years since it has opened, it has become as much a symbol of San Francisco and a tourist attraction as the city's cable cars. Tragically, over the years, many people have chosen to end their lives by jumping off the bridge. Occasionally, though, someone gets pushed. You see Miss Spider-Woman. Don't get to see a lot of Spider-Woman, especially in an Avengers comic book. So she is based out of San Francisco in Marvel's comics at this time. So 200 feet straight down toward the rolling black water of the Golden Gate. She never reaches it because Spider-Woman is there to catch her by friends betrayed. And here we go. Chris Claremont, writer, co-editor. Okay. Michael Golden, penciler. Armando Gil. I believe Armando Gil, he didn't do a whole lot of work for Marvel. I believe he still does inking for some of the independent, smaller comic book companies, like Dark Horse and stuff like that. David Anthony Kraft is kind of interesting. He died last year, I believe. He's a really good writer. He wrote some epic issues of the Defenders, which I might be covering in the future. He also did quite a bit of kind of offbeat titles, writing in the 70s. He did like a Man Wolf. I know George Perez did the pencils on that Man Wolf issue that he did in the 70s. It was, I forget, I think it was Marvel Premiere or something like that. I can't remember the name of the book. I'd have to look it up. Really good writer, really talented writer. So he's the co-editor, and Jim Shooter, of course, editor-in-chief. This is kind of a long story. So, glider wings grabbing for every wayward gust of wind, the dark angel scrambles for altitude. The woman was unconscious before I reached her. This is no suicide attempt. Someone tried to kill her. I'm glad I chose tonight to explore my new home. Oh no, the wind's shifting, dying down. Yeah, she's... Spider-Woman has to glide to fly. I'm losing my lift. The best she can do is twist her body as they fall so that she bears the brunt of the impact. So she's complaining about how cold the water here, and she's trying to get this mysterious Jane Doe, as they call her later, to shore before she freezes here. The currents here are fierce, and the tide is sweeping us out to sea. We landed near the middle of the channel. That means at least a mile swim, whichever way I turn. Shouldn't be a problem for a superhero, right? I'd best get a move on then. The longer I wait, the less chance we'll have. Alone, the Dark Angel could easily reach the shore. If she stays with her companion, they could both die. Yet, characteristically, the thought of abandoning her helpless charge never enters Spider-Woman's head. 3 hours later, as the morning sun burns off the pre-dawn fog, San Francisco slowly bestirs its sprawling collective self and rises to greet the new day. So she manages to bring this mysterious blonde woman into the San Francisco Police Department here. And she's hanging on the wall there drinking a cup of coffee. I love Michael Golden's artwork. Some people are mixed about it. You know, he was it was more started out more like a commercial artist, kind of in the vein like Neil Adams. Neil Adams has a much more realistic look when he draws, but it's still like a commercially viable. Michael Golden's the same way, but his artwork is much more cartoonish, stylized a little bit, but his forte is definitely detail and machinery. I mean, you can see how he draws the wheelchair here. I mean, look at the detail on a wheelchair. How many of just little things like that? I'm going to go to full screen here. I keep forgetting. I mean, how many comic book artists are going to put that much detail just in having a little obscure object to the side here in this big panel as a wheelchair? I mean, that's Michael Golden, and that's not even a indicator of what he does in other books. I might even show that issue of the Star Wars that he does. I felt better, Lieutenant, but I'll live. I'm waiting to hear about the woman I rescued. I've got a make on her. It's very interesting reading. Doctor, how's our Jane Doe? She'll live, poor thing. What do you mean? What's wrong? Physically, nothing. Her body is in superb shape. But as near as I can determine, her mind is non-existent. She functions at the level of a newborn infant. We'd better canvass all the Bay Area mental hospitals with such an extreme condition. She's probably been institutionalized since childhood. I'm afraid you're wrong, Doctor. We ran a check on her fingerprints. Your Jane Doe is Carol Susan Jane Danvers. At age 29, Major U.S. Air Force retired, Chief of Security, Kennedy Space Center, NASA retired, former editor of Woman magazine. Okay. Her Air Force file is classified, but I'm told she was one of the best people they had. Top-notch pilot, fluent in 3 languages. So she's... Oh, no. I'm sorry. Oh, no, I don't care. Dude, I don't care. I just get on here and start reading. I need to brush up on my reading skills. There's some days I just... I'm sorry, go on. So Joe Biden is everything to everyone. You don't know that yet? I need to get a drink anyway. Joe Biden is the everyman. I mean, the guy is Puerto Rican. He's Jewish. What a fucking ridiculous human being. I mean, and don't get me started. This isn't a political show, but every once in a while I'll go on a rant. You know, she's single, last known residence, 14th Carroll Street, Greenwich Village, New York, and 6 months ago she disappeared. When you said the brain was working but not working, I thought of our esteemed president. Esteemed. See, there's a weird backstory with this issue, and I'm not going to go to the details of how Marvel has kind of mismanaged Carol Danvers' character since the 70s. It's like they were forcefully trying to put that character over when she didn't need to be. Her original book didn't sell that well. Big deal. There's a lot of books that they tried in the 70s that didn't sell that well. Comic book sales in the late 70s were not that great overall. The whole industry wasn't like killing it. You know what I mean? The sales today are much higher because it's much more mainstream. Comic books weren't mainstream. This was like underground shit. You tried to hide the fact that you read comic books in the late 70s. Not everybody was like, oh, comic book. Now comic books comic books rule pop culture. And they tried to I think it's a character that they tried to forcefully get over to the readers, and that never works. It doesn't work with wrestling. It doesn't work with anything like that. You can't force a character on people. You know what I mean? And they've tried that, and they're still trying it to this day. So they've come up with a lot of, they turned the character, for one, some of the writers just turned the character into a bitch. And I'm going on about, they haven't even, they're not even talking about the fact that that she's Miss Marvel, at this time. So Spider-Woman goes, the good doctor this is an Avengers book, I promise. The good doctor may be unable to learn precisely how badly Carol is hurt, but I know someone who can. Of course, you're going to have the X-Men. Chris Claremont at the time was the X-Men writer. So of course this is the beginning of them throwing the X-Men into everything. You're going to always see guest cameo by the X-Men. Across the continent, Professor Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. So she's calling up Charles Xavier, the Uncanny X-Men. You've got Kitty Pryde answering the phone. The professor's in the danger room, Spider-Woman. Hang on a minute, I'll get him. So here we go, a great panel. I always loved the way Michael Golden drew females. Where's Your White Tiger movie? It may be coming, not a movie. I predict that White Tiger will get a streaming show in the next 2 to 3 years. I'd bet on it. Because they were talking about doing the Daughters of the Dragon, until they kind of lost some steam from Netflix. But White Tiger's coming. At some point, White Tiger is coming. So we see Danger Room Control Center here. We got Nightcrawler, Storm, and Professor Xavier. Phone Professor, long distance. Thank you, child. Who is it, kitten? I'm not going to read all the other. This is them. Nightcrawler is repairing the control panel of the Danger Room from X-Men 143. X-Men 143 was John Byrne's last X-Men. That's where it says hard at work repairing the observation booth control centers destroyed last Christmas, along with much of the mansion during an epic one-on-one battle between Kitty and a demon. So that was on Christmas Eve, but that was John Byrne's last time drawing the X-Men. So it says X-Men 143. And ironically enough, it's the issue right after the Days of Future Past, the 2 issues of Days of Future Past, which are heralded as the top X-Men issues ever. So he left right after that. See, White Tiger is worth digging out of its grave and redoing. No one would be angry about that. No, I wouldn't be angry. I mean, they'd probably screw it up. I'm not going to get all giddy about I don't get them giddy about doing anything. Trust me. Because they'll assign some bonehead that doesn't know anything about the fucking comic books, doesn't care, and doesn't know anything about the character. And it'll be a running gag when it's a serious character. And it should be taken serious. That's just my opinion. So that's what Nightcrawler's doing. He's repairing because Kitty and that had a battle by herself with that demon on Christmas night, and it just wrecked the mansion. So that's happened right after that. Spider-Woman is on the phone. Aurora. She sounded pretty. Nightcrawler. Yuck. Nightcrawler leaves that the brimstone fumes when he teleports. How goes it, Elf? That's Wolverine. Without warning, Nightcrawler vanishes from the observation booth in a noisome puff of smoke and flame and a bamf of imploding air. Everything is nearly set, Wolverine, once I make a few minor adjustments. Bear with me, Colossus. You only have to hold this a couple of minutes longer. Take your time, Torvarich. It only weighs 5 tons. Oh, gee, Peter sounds so miffed, and it's all my fault because of my fight with that stupid demon. True, kitten. That battle wrecked much of the school, and it will cost a fortune to set things right. But what matters, and the only thing that matters, is that you survived. Machines can be replaced. People, especially those you love, cannot. I will be covering that issue. That is a great issue of the X-Men. So, this is just some filler here. Yeah, I mean, this is just filler. It has no bearing on the story here. So I'm going to go back down to pick up with a story. At Carol's bedside, Xavier begins his telepathic examination. So I guess they left out to San Francisco, Leaving the others to pick up the pieces and start repairs all over again, Xavier and Storm fly westward aboard the X-Men's hypersonic modified SR-71 Blackbird aircraft. I've just been on the phone with Miss Danvers, folks. They'll be here tonight. Her dad took the news pretty hard. Her mother said something weird, though, that our questions could possibly be answered by the Avengers and Miss Marvel. They're New York-based superheroes. Miss Marvel's one of the team, a bit out of my jurisdiction and my league. See, they don't realize that they're one and the same. And Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, was a member of the Avengers for a short period of time, leading up to Avengers 200. It's a long, complicated, heinous story, but that's when they kind of got rid of Carol Danvers out of the Avengers lineup. Her last appearance was Avengers 200 before this. I'll do what I can, Spider-Woman, but I offer no guarantees. Breaking this case won't be easy. Under the circumstances, even unofficial help would be welcome if you're interested. Spider-Woman, Professor Xavier's voice inside my head. I am communicating telepathically to preserve the secret of my mutant abilities, as do your true identity as Jessica Drew. My mind scan is complete. Carol's condition is far worse than we feared. Her conscious mind has been completely erased. You'll find out here in a minute what happened. She is a tabula rasa, a blank slate. But her condition is not hopeless. Many of her critical memories and personality traits should be buried deep within her subconscious. With time and effort and luck, I believe I can draw them to the surface. Your suspicions are well-founded. This is not a natural state. Carol was an exceptionally strong and courageous person. She fought hard for her mind. My preliminary scan of her subconscious picked up this residual image. I believe it is her assailant. Her name is Rogue. This is the first appearance of Rogue in comic books. Now, Rogue has existed in comic books. She has a backstory before this, so that they retcon after this issue. So, but this is the official first appearance of Rogue. But her backstory, but she existed in the story, but you never knew what the character was. She's got beef with Miss Marvel. That's basically the whole premise of Rogue is she had her powers by she got her abilities, her super strength. Her mutant ability is absorbing your abilities. That's her mutant power. Her mutant power isn't her super strength or resilience or her sonic speed. She can fly. That's all the stuff she absorbed from Miss Marvel. And she stayed in contact too long with Miss Marvel because she had a vendetta against Miss Marvel for basically stopping her adopted mother, which we'll see later in this storyline. It gets complicated. But this is Chris Claremont trying to tie up loose ends from about a character, Carol Danvers, that has kind of been a mess in the Marvel Comics up to this point. Chapter 2, New York City, Central Park, mid-afternoon. And this is a great, great panel. I love this. This is Captain America. Captain America laid to waste here. This is Captain America, living legend of World War II. He has seen better days. Nice, simple panel of him getting just... He's got the shit kicked out of him by somebody. This is Michael Golden. This is just Michael Golden at his best. Michael Golden, if you're familiar with Michael Golden's Micronauts run, he did the first 12 issues of Micronauts, and he was inked by a legendary inker on that run. Bill Mantlo was the writer, basically the creator of the Micronauts mythos, but Michael Golden was the artist on the first 12 issues, and he was inked by a guy named Joseph Rubinstein, who is a legendary inker, but I'm not sure if he's the best fit for Michael Golden's artwork. Now, I love the Micronauts. I'm very sad that I don't have digital access to the Micronauts comic books due to licensing issues. Um, I've got to somehow get some digital copies so I can go over the Micronauts. Micronauts are freaking awesome. The comic book is awesome. Um, it's better than the Star Wars comic book, in my opinion. I think Baron Karza is a cool villain. Um, he's Darth Vader. I mean, he's everything Darth Vader is, in my opinion. Um, and Michael Golden. Now, after Michael Golden left, I lost a little bit of interest. It's still cool, but Michael Golden, those first 12 issues are just awesome. Just his style fits that more science fiction type more than it does superheroes, in my opinion. So he has seen better days. I get off on a tangent, Michael Golden. But I mean, I love his style for this kind of stuff as well. Poor little Cap, you never had a chance, darling. So we're seeing Rogue in action for the first time. I possess all Miss Marvel's memories. Yeah, not only did she absorb her Kree abilities, but she also now possess basically her memories and her psyche and all of that stuff. So the two hate each other in Marvel Comics. It turns out there's a huge ongoing feud between Carol Danvers and Rogue, and it kind of comes to a head in about 3 years down the road in the X-Men comic books. Kind of comes to a head on that. I might even be covering those as well. I possess all, and she's from Mississippi. I'm not going to do an accent like that. I probably couldn't anyway. I possess all Miss Marvel's memories. I'm going to sound like Bill Clinton. I know how you fight, how you think. That made it easy to catch you off guard. Most importantly, I possess her power. Yeah, little Miss Marvel also has the ability of an extra sense that she can kind of see. She can kind of has an intuition about somebody's fighting ability when she's confronting an opponent. So I kind of clumsily explained that, but Rogue also absorbed that ability. So Rogue can it's kind of like seeing in a small glimpse into the future, like a spider sense kind of thing. When she's in battle with an opponent, she's got the upper hand. Basically, she has the initiative when she's fighting. And when I touch you, as I did her, I'll absorb your power and memories as well. Now, if any flesh-to-flesh contact, no matter how slight, will suffice for the transfer. But it's only temporary, unless she holds on to you, but it screws her up as well. Like she literally loses her identity if she holds on to you too long. So she doesn't want to do that. And I think this way is much more fun. I have to be careful this time. Remember my training. If I lose control again, stay in contact too long, like I did last night in San Francisco with Miss Marvel, the transfer will become permanent. Not far away, facing the park across Fifth Avenue, stands one of the most famous buildings on Earth, Avengers Mansion, home of the equally famous team of superheroes. Unaware of what has just befallen their comrade, Cap's fellow Avengers are gathering for their regular weekly meeting. I love the Avengers meetings. They all just kind of sit around in their costumes. You won't see that in the movies. I know I keep going on about that. And now, this is Wonder Man here, of course, on the left, but it's a shame. I've never been fond of this Wonder Man outfit. I always liked his green and red, or his green, red, and yellow costume that George Perez designed. I guess John Byrne didn't like that costume, so he had it destroyed in the Count Nefaria fight. The fight with Count Nefaria, he gets his costume torn up, and then he went to this kind of costume with the red glasses. Never been a fan of this. It's just I see how the pouches here have the W and all this. Yeah, okay, and I like the belt. He's got the jet belt, but I always preferred his like green battle costume. How's showbiz treating you, Wonder Man? I haven't seen you on the tube lately. As the saying goes, Hawkeye, I am between engagements. Oh, unemployed, huh? Precisely. Nothing for me, thank you, Jarvis. My synthezoid form requires no organic substances. Substance. I can't talk. I can't read. Of course, Master Vision. Would you care for some tea and cakes, Miss Wanda? I'd love a cake, Jarvis. Be patient, Beast. I'm sure Cap will be with us shortly. Watch out, Witch. They're yummy, but oh so fattening. I wonder where Cap is. It isn't like our beloved leader to be late. I read it out of order. I'd love a cake, Jarvis. Be patient, Beast. I'm sure Cap will be with us shortly. At which point, right on cue, and we see Captain America being thrown through the plate glass window. Good gracious. While the Avengers react with customary speed and efficiency, some tending to Cap while others seek his assailant, we shift our scene eastward across Long Island to the corporate headquarters of Stark International. Stark International on Long Island. This is before he moved it out to California. I think in the Iron Man comic book, he ends up moving it out to California. Why on earth he'd want to do that, I don't know. Where we find its founder and president, Tony Stark, hard at work in his laboratory, fine-tuning the armor worn by his alter ego, Iron Man. Hey, the Avengers priority alarm. And I love this. I just love how Michael Golden does mechanical stuff. I mean, it's unlike a lot of other comic book artists at the time. I just love his style. I noticed Iron Man would be unable to attend today's meeting. They wouldn't call, especially with that signal, unless things were deadly serious. Although Stark answers the call, it appears to the Avengers thanks to a computer-generated facsimile image of Iron Man transmitted by Stark. He's still keeping on with his secret identity. I believe the only Avenger that knows he is Tony Stark at this point is Thor. I think they have a mutual agreement that they know each other's secret identity at this point in time. Captain America has been assaulted, sir, and you see Iron Man on the view screen there. It's really Tony Stark talking. Captain America has been assaulted, sir. We need Dr. Blake immediately. I have searched the park and surrounding streets. I saw nothing and no one suspicious. I'll take care of it, Jarvis. Expect us in 15 minutes. Let's move into the meta lab. Gently, guys. So Cap is battered and in bad shape. Dawn, it's Tony Stark. I mean, who's Dawn, right? He's talking to Thor right now. He's talking to Donald Don Blake. Dr. Donald Blake. Oh, boy. It's Tony Stark. Implausible as it sounds, Cap's been mugged. It sounds bad. You're needed. He's been more than mugged. You'll make your own way to the mansion? Good. I'll meet you there. The intercom. What is it, Mrs. Arbogast? We have a visitor, Mr. Stark. A Mrs. Janet Pym. I told her Janet Van Dyne after they get divorced. This is also the start of where Yellow Jacket is just being shit on by the Marvel writers. And I love Yellow Jacket. I always liked Hank Pym. But they had it out for him, and they had a domestic abuse. He had a nervous breakdown, domestic abuse case against him, and he ends up going to jail, and he's off the Avengers. They just, for some reason, it might have been Jim Shooter, they had it out for that character. You have a visitor, Mr. Stark, a Miss Janet Pym. I told her you weren't to be disturbed, but she insists. Send her in and cancel my remaining appointments. I'll be out the rest of the day. Iron Man, but I thought Tony Stark, he was called away, but I'm glad you're here, Wasp. Captain America's been seriously hurt. So Wasp does not know at this time that now that would change in like a year from now. Captain America has been seriously hurt. All the Avengers have been summoned to the mansion. I know your husband isn't a full-time member anymore, and we can certainly use your and Yellow Jacket's help. Of course, Shellhead. It sounds so awful. Will Cap be okay? I'm afraid it's too soon to tell, Jan. What are you doing? I can't move. So there's a little device put on his back there. How perceptive. This module generates an inhibitor field that effectively renders all power systems completely dysfunctional. Love Michael Golden. Oh, man. I'd give anything to be able to draw like Michael Golden. While it's in place, your vaunted armor is nothing more than a gaily painted statue. Your shape, it's changing. Who are you? I am Mystique. I lead the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. You might call Rogue my protege. Actually, Rogue is her adopted daughter at this time. Rogue, Iron Man has been neutralized. Proceed with Plan A. I copy, Mystique. It'll be a pleasure. I pity your friends, Shellhead. Like you and Captain America, they'll never know what hit them. And I love this skull communicator that Mystique has on her belt there. What a cool design, and they screwed it up in the comic books, or they screwed it up in the movies, of course, in my opinion. Why didn't they go with this design? What's wrong with that, with the skull on the... and Michael Golden just does it justice, too. Okay, we're going back out to San Francisco. Professor Xavier stayed on the coast to do what he could for Carol, the poor woman. I hope she'll be all right. This is Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, arriving back into Manhattan to the Avengers Mansion. Aurora wanted to help at this end, but there's no sense involving the X-Men until I've learned more about Carol and her relationship with Miss Marvel and the Avengers. I'll accomplish more at this stage. I think as an ordinary private investigator. Hey, that woman in green running into the service alley. She's the one that Xavier showed me. The woman he believes attacked Carol. Meanwhile, in the courtyard behind the mansion, Anthony Stark is not given to hyperbole. Captain America's condition must be grave indeed. They just wanted to show what's her name naked. Oh, Rebecca Romijn O'Connell. Everyone wants to say Rebecca Romijn Stamos. I remember on the roast of Greg Giraldo, on the roast of John Stamos, said, you lost your wife to the fat kid from the Goonies. Or no, the fat kid from Stand By Me, not the Goonies. Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, they didn't do Mystique. And then they made Mystique Jennifer Lawrence, and then they... Don't get me started. Jeez. Anthony Stark is not given to a hard purpose. I already read that. Okay, Thor's mystic Uru hammer Mjolnir strikes the ground, once more transforming an Asgardian mortal into a lame physician. What's needed this evening are the medical skills of Dr. Don Blake. I actually prefer when Thor is just Thor. I'm glad Walt Simonson did away with the Donald Blake. I understand it kind of creates... I always like that white outfit she wore. Always like white outfit. Mystique? I can't remember. That might have been later on. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what white outfit. The medical skills of Dr. Donald Blake. And too true, Doc. And it looks like Rogue comes up and smokes him. Now, that would probably kill Dr. Donald Blake. And your first patient is going to be yourself. And I love this picture of Rogue here. Leave him alone. Who? The name is Spider-Woman, Rogue. I've been looking forward to this meeting ever since I hauled Carol Danvers out of the Golden Gate. She's alive, no thanks to you, and you're going to pay for what you did to her. Yeah, it's like a robe dress. Dr. Don Blake is lame. Yeah, literally and figuratively, in my opinion. I never liked that. I always liked Thor as just an Asgardian. You know what I mean? I almost said Kryptonian. Thor is an Asgardian. Do tell. Blast. Spider-Woman's costume covers her entire body, so she can't be... you could touch her chin, maybe. Yeah, you could touch her right here on her lower part of her face, but yeah. So she can't absorb her abilities. That punch nearly finished me. Rogue's strength is awesome, but when I tap my cane against the ground, the odds in this scrape will change considerably. If I can't touch her flesh, I can't absorb her powers, and she's so fast and agile. I haven't been able to hit her. Oh, hold, woman. Thor knowst not who thou art. I'm Rogue, darling, and you have my eternal gratitude for handing me victory. By grabbing her, she's allowing Rogue to to touch him on the proverbial silver platter. As Thor cries out there. She's absorbing Thor's powers. The transfer doesn't seem to be complete. Perhaps I can still stop her with a venom blast. Little arrow to let me know to go this way instead of this way. Thanks, Michael Golden. Emerald fire explodes. Well, I mean, you never know. Emerald fire explodes from the Dark Angel's fingertips. I'm not sure why Chris Claremont keeps referring her to the Dark Angel. I've never... Is that how they referred to Spider-Woman? That's new to me. Dark Angel's fingertips, a bioelectric bolt of staggering proportions. It has absolutely no effect. I love that panel there. More Michael Golden goodness. What's causing all this commotion? Cripes, Thor's being trashed by a woman. The female in green is unknown to me, but my memory cells recognize her antagonist from our security files as Spider-Woman. Judging from her proximity to Thor and her obvious physical condition, the mystery woman seems the more evident threat. I will deal with her. Vision coming fast. He's a synthezoid, a sentient mechanism. My power only works on living beings. I can't absorb his abilities. I'll have to destroy him. Mystique taught me how he fights. He'll probably reduce his density to a ephemeral state and then make part of his body solid with mine, hoping the stress will stun me. But if I use Thor as a shield, fear of hurting his fellow Avengers should throw him off balance enough. I'm struggling reading this. No, as he phases through Thor's chest and me to administer an instant coup de grace. No, they're great. Vision just crumbles there. That's awesome. But she's absorbed Thor's strength temporarily, so what do you expect? Now we've got Wonder Man flying in. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. You KO'd the Vision with one punch. Huh? I slammed into you full force and you're still standing. That's right, Wonder Man. You're fighting someone who possesses the aggregate power of Thor, Captain America, and Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel, but that's impossible. I could go on why that's impossible, why the Avengers think that's impossible. I dropped an image of the costume. It's pretty standard, Mystique. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. I just always think of the blue, but that's not her costume. You're right. The robe is her costume. Blue is her natural state. Raven Darkholm is her name, I guess. They always tried to say that they kind of always hinted about her being related to Nightcrawler in some way, but I don't remember offhand. I'd have to do some research again on Mystique's origin. Again, it's if I ever knew it, I would have to. If I ever knew it, I've forgotten what it is. I think it is tied to Nightcrawler in some way, but I'd have to look it up again. I have forgotten. No need to strip her down. Yeah, I mean, it's badass. I love the skulls on her belt and the skull on her forehead and the long red, reddish flowing hair. Yeah, I mean, who makes these decisions? I know that the cinematographer has more say-so in a movie because it looks right. They do screen tests. I think they overthink it. I understand that they want that darker shows up better, less, it shows up better on film. You know what I mean? For movies. That's why they had all the X-Men in the black uniforms and all that. I understand it's, but that's why they make Captain America's outfit darker instead of the lighter blue. And the same with Thor. They make him They don't have that. They don't have that costumey blue. When it comes to the movies. So, I don't know. It's a shame. I mean, I understand it's easy. It's easier to depict. It's more acceptable in a comic book. But I mean, come on. Try a little harder to make it look more like the comic book. It's just me. I mean, that's just my feeling on the matter. And I'm about to add your abilities to my collection, Sugar. Something's wrong. I touched him, but nothing's happened. His eyes, they're not human. Yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman. Wonder Man is like a embodiment of energy. So, I mean, he takes his glasses off. You see nothing. He's basically a husk of energy. Indeed, they are not, and neither is Wonder Man himself. I mean, you can't really classify Wonder Man as human. That's 3 I couldn't affect. 2 more than Mystique and I bargained for. If I stay, it could probably kill them all, but I can't afford the risk. With what's at stake, Mystique would skin me alive. Ta-da, darlings. I hate to win and run, but I have a prior engagement. Don't fret, though. We'll do this again sometime real soon. Yeah, it says about Wonder Man. He is a being of living, sentient energy, as powerful as Thor, is immune to Rogue's mutant ability as the Vision. Realizing her danger, Rogue deals with him in a similar manner. I can hardly wait. Yeah, Hawkeye wasn't much good in that fight. I can hardly wait. What brings you here, Red? Aren't you based in Los Angeles? San Francisco. I'm investigating the attempted murder of Carol Danvers, better known to you, Avengers, as Miss Marvel. Chapter 3. Oh, I love this. I love the Avengers A on the table here and the little effects, the lighting effects of I mean, look at the detail Michael Golden goes through to depict this stuff. I mean, this is Jack Kirby level, but it's a little more stylized than Jack Kirby as far as cartoonish comic book looking. Jack Kirby had everything, Michael Golden's style is a little more rounded than Jack Kirby. But I mean, when it comes to displaying like the all the details in the headquarters, or I'd love to see him draw like the Bat Cave or something. That would be cool. We have a long panel here of this is a recap of Avengers 200 right here. 6 months ago, Miss Marvel and Carol Danvers vanished simultaneously from New York. 3 months ago, according to Lieutenant Morrow, Carol surfaced in San Francisco, where she lived peacefully, unobtrusively, until last night when I believe Rogue tried to kill her. You seem to find this astonishing. Why? Because we never thought we'd see Carol again, hence Avengers 200. She was only an Avenger for a comparatively short time. I think I knew her best, yet in retrospect, I hardly knew her at all. That's Scarlet Witch speaking. She was a strong, self-reliant, take-charge lady. Some people found that a bit daunting. Oh, Brie Larson. She was also a very private person. Because of that, some believed her to be an emotionless ice maiden. They were wrong. No, they made her into a Karen. Sorry, should have been Karen Danvers. They turned her into a bitch in the comic books. So here we have a reaccount of Avengers 200. I'll go through it real quick. It's really a bad story. Avengers 200 is not a good issue. It's a blemish on the history of the Avengers in the Bronze Age. Let's put it that way. In less than a day, in less than 100 hours, she carried the baby to full term and gave birth to a son. It was morning sickness. Literally overnight, Carol had become 3 months pregnant, and they couldn't explain it. It was like divine intervention. All of a sudden, Carol Danvers was pregnant. And in less than 100 hours, she carried the baby to full term and gave birth to a son. In less than a day, that son grew to manhood. His name was Marcus. His father was Immortus, who is also known as Kang, Ramatut, Pharaoh, all throughout the timeline of he's a time traveling entity, a godlike traveler who has aided the Avengers on occasion. Marcus had originally been born and had lived his life in a mortis domain, limbo, but he found that loneliness of that place unbearable. He resolved to escape to Earth. To do that, he teleported Miss Marvel to Limbo, wooed her, won her trust and love, and implanted his essence within her, creating a condition that resembled pregnancy. All this happened in Avengers 200. But Marcus was still bound to Limbo. His very presence on Earth disrupted the local time stream. We had crazies popping out of the wazoo, dinosaurs, spaceships, knights in armor, the works. While we fought them, Marcus was in our lab, building a machine he said that would save the day. None of us trusted him, but it all happened so fast there was no time to get a handle on things. To me, it looked like Marcus was the bad guy playing us for suckers. So I destroyed his machine. My mistake. Without the machine, he couldn't stay on Earth. He had to return to Limbo forever. And to make a long story short, Carol Danvers agreed to go with him because she fell in love with her own son. Yes. As chronicled in Avengers 197 to 200. Yes. With 200 being the... So Kang got Miss Marvel pregnant with Marcus, who then got Miss Marvel pregnant with himself. Bingo! Bing, bing, bing. It's not really... He's not Kang yet. All right. Kang was his future persona. It's complicated. I'm telling you, this is kind of remember in the past I said when Avengers started going downhill, you can look no further than Avengers 200. Yeah, Jim Shooter was like, I can't believe Jim Shooter let this go to press. Okay? Let's just get that out right now. I love Jim Shooter. I loved his run at Marvel. He had a nice little 8-9 year run. He did leaps and bounds for Marvel Comics for the industry. This was not a bright shining moment in the annals of Marvel Comics history. Avengers 200. It's dreadful. I mean, even as a kid, I remember reading through it and I was like, and I like David Michelinie writing. I mean, Demon in the Bottle. He created Scott Lang Ant-Man, Taskmaster with George Perez. He co-created Venom with Todd McFarlane. Great writer. I mean, one of the top 5 writers of Marvel ever. This was not good. This was not it. I don't know. I think they were trying... The Avengers were losing steam comic book wise to the X-Men. The X-Men were the darlings now. You know what I mean? 1980, X-Men were getting all the hype. Well, there's competitions that go on in the Marvel bullpens. I've read interviews decades and decades ago about, there's some ill will, some feuds that spring up when one book takes off, wins all the awards, gets all the acclaim, and the guy that used to be the Avengers used to be kind of like the big team book. They were Marvel's team book. They even overtook the Fantastic Four, So there's some hard feelings that, personalities and egos butt heads in the Marvel bullpen. And Jim Shooter made no bones that Jim Shooter played favorites. If your stuff was selling, you were going to get the prestigious assignments. You were going to get, he made no bones about it. And he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And David Michelinie, I think they tried something outlandish to try to bring some heat to the Avengers. Like, oh, we'll do this. I mean, look what was happening in X-Men at the time. You had Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix saga was going on. Nobody was paying attention to the Avengers. I mean, Dark Phoenix they had bags and bags of mail about the Dark Phoenix. It was all the talk of comic books. I mean, that rubs some people the wrong way. You know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? I'm going on too long about it. But yeah, it's bad. So, long story short, Carol Danvers decides to basically give up her earthly presence, and she's in love with her son. Yeah, which isn't really her son. You know, so she decides to leave the Avengers, and Thor takes them to Limbo, opens a portal, transports them back, and they were going to live happily ever after. I assume since she was living alone on the coast, I think it's another thing to try to shake up the roster. It was that time to shake up the Avengers roster, which they did, and I don't think Miss Marvel was ever a good fit in the Avengers. And I think the fans felt the same way. So this was kind of their stupid way of showing her the door. I assume since she was living alone on the coast that things didn't work out, but why she didn't try to contact you? She still possessed the powers of Miss Marvel. Else Rogue couldn't have stolen them. Why didn't she ever use them? Beast, how are your patients? I've run comparison scans with the data you supplied on Carol, Spider-Woman. We're lucky the effect on Cap and Thor seems to be temporary, though I have no idea how long they will last. Witch, any word from Iron Man? Calls her Witch. Claremont writes the Avengers a little differently. I don't know. I'm not used to Chris Claremont writing the Avengers. I can't remember if Chris Claremont ever wrote Avengers besides this. I couldn't tell you. Not that I can remember. I don't think Chris Claremont ever. So anyway, nothing since we first phoned him. I'm afraid you'll have to assume the worst. Jim Shooter said there was bad blood between David Michelinie and Chris Claremont. So this might be Chris Claremont's way of say, hey, I've got an Avengers Annual. While you're doing the Avengers, I'm going to tidy up your mess. Our foe certainly knows her business. Her first strikes neutralize your strongest, most experienced members. Even if we find Rogue, defeating her won't be easy. The beast face is well drawn. Let me look. Oh yeah, isn't that awesome? I'm really biased. I just love Michael Golden's style anyway. I just love it. If you look at some of those old Micronauts, he does like Bug and Marionette. I love the way he draws women too, all the way down to Jocasta. But yeah, that beast face is awesome. Michael Golden at his best. So here we go. So they locate Rogue through the power, absorbed her power. She took that aura as well. Our scanners should have no trouble locating her. So, and voila. Yeah. She is crossing Randall's Island, moving almost due east. Where could she be headed? Where are they headed? I believe I know, Jocasta, and if I'm right, our troubles may have just begun. Chapter 4, Rikers Island, Midnight. They're pulling up. I love the detail of the prison down there. That's kind of looks like a Frank Miller panel right there. Originally, this was a city jail, but to raise money during a New York's ongoing fiscal crisis, a section of the prison was leased to the federal government to be used for the incarceration of so-called super criminals. Among the inmates are members of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. One of them is Destiny, who is a lesbian and actually has a relationship going with Mystique. I wonder if they're going to explore that in the new MCU version of the X-Men. I was kind of thinking about that the other day. I was kind of thinking about who could they cast to do like an MCU X-Men, and would they have Destiny and Mystique have a relationship like they do in see how diverse and woke comic books were? I mean, come on. Destiny is a blind woman with the psychic ability to see the future. Be ready, my friends. Our deliverance is at hand, and she is part of the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Bombs away, sugar. Happy landings. This is infuriating and embarrassing. So long as Mystique's inhibitor is attached to my armor, I'm helpless. Iron Man's thrown out of the jump jet here, and they're using Iron Man as like a missile to break the Brotherhood out of their containment units. Rogue's aim is true as her arm is strong, and Iron Man strikes the main generator room with the force of a small nuclear bomb. Ordinary cells won't hold most super criminals, and a few can only be imprisoned within massive energy fields. A constant flow of power is needed to maintain those fields. And any disruption of that complex electrical grid, no matter how slight, can have devastating results. Throughout the prison, only 4 inmates are prepared to take advantage of their golden opportunity before the reserve generators come online. Destiny is one, a mutant known as the Blob is another. Nearby, a path to the prison's inner courtyard is created by Avalanche, who can crumble solid objects, earth, stone, steel, anything with a touch or a thought, creating an instantaneous avalanche tidal wave effect. While the Brotherhood's remaining member, Pyro, who is able to control living flame, shepherds Destiny along. See, and they ended up making Pyro like a kid, like the spoil of the kid Bobby Drake Iceman in the X-Men movies. But he's actually an older Englishman. And in comic books, he's an older guy from England who's who was never like a good guy. He was always in the Brotherhood. The new Brotherhood. What's your precog talent? Show us, love. Will we pull this caper off? Nothing is certain until it happens, Pyro. I deal in probabilities. I perceive the myriad infinite pathways to the future. From them, I must deduce the one we are to follow, the one most likely to bring us success. But in everything, there's an element of chance. I like that. Oh, cool panel here of the Brotherhood suiting up. I got to hand it to you, Misty. You said you'd bust us out of stir, and you did it. If that compliment doesn't make Mystique's day, Blob, I don't know what will. A valiant try, Avalanche, but I fear such irony is lost on our corpulent comrade. I'm not sure. Never heard that word before. Fat. I guess he's just fat. Leave it to Chris Claremont to stump me. Destiny, oh my beloved friend, it is so good to see you. It gladdens my heart to hear your voice also, Raven, but we must be gone from here quickly. I like Destiny's costume too. Too late, group. It looks like my rematch with the Avengers is coming a whole lot sooner than I figured. Avengers assemble. You're right, Spider-Woman. This is a prison break. Who are these bozos anyway? Now, I can understand why they don't do this costume on Hawkeye in the movies, but I mean, they could have at least made it a little more. I mean, the mask, I never really understood Hawkeye's like mask here, and the Buccaneer boots can go, but I love Scarlet Witch's costume. I'm always going to prefer this to what they do in the movies. The Beast and the Vision, of course, is phasing out of the Avengers Quinjet. A new incarnation of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Hawkeye. Last November in Washington, D.C., all save Mystique were captured by the mutant X-Men when they attempted the assassination of Senator Robert Kelly. This is West Coast Avengers, right? It is similar to the West Coast Avengers later, which John Byrne did end up taking over. This is kind of what the West Coast Avengers ended up. Not Spider-Woman, though. And I don't think Jocasta, but the rest of the members, the rest of these guys did end up being, I think they had Mockingbird as well. And can't remember who else. I'd have to go in, and I have access. Yeah, Wonder Man was in the West. Yeah, Wonder Man, Scarlet Witch, and Vision and Hawkeye ended up being in the West Coast Avengers. No, you're absolutely right. I don't think Beast was, and I don't think Jocasta was. Jocasta might have been. I can't remember. I have access to all those and John Byrne's West Coast Avenger run. Jocasta, I barely remember. I think she's linked with Ultron. She was the bride of Ultron. I will be going over those issues at one point, where the origin of Jocasta. Yeah, she's Ultron's bitch that turned against. She's got partial she's got the Wasp's psyche in her. They tried to do a transference between Janet Van Dyne and Jocasta. Yeah, I'll be going over those. Those are Jim Shooter. That's Jim Shooter, George Perez. Yeah, they did those issues. This is as chronicled in the now legendary X-Men 41 and 42. That is Days of Future Past. Those two issues right there. Be careful, all of you. Remember that Rogue possesses the abilities of some of our strongest and most experienced members. So we're going to have an epic battle here beginning. I hate to make a lousy situation worse, Witch Lady, but you have a lot more to worry about than Rogue. A gesture, a moment's concentration from Avalanche, and creates an irresistible tidal wave of concrete that knocks the Avengers off their feet and sweeps their Quinjet to the East River. I love it. Oh, this is awesome here. Quite so, chum. We are none of us are lightweights, especially, dare I say it, the Blob. Fat shaming Pyro there. Yeah, the Englishman created a giant bird made of fire. Get out of here, Spider-Woman, before this thing barbecues us. Iron Man is somewhere inside the prison. I'll try to find him. Spider-Woman is this is classic Claremont. A little side. I love the way he makes like this little side conversations during the battle. It's just really a lot of comic book writers don't do this kind of thing. Spider-Woman is dangerous, Mystique. If she rescues Iron Man, his power could tip the scales against us. She's the one who saved Carol Danvers' life. Leave her to me, Destiny. The Brotherhood is in your hands. Guide them well. Control your emotions, Mystique, lest your hatred for the Danvers woman lead us all to destruction. That's why Rogue sent out to kill. Rogue basically does Mystique's bidding. That was kind of her origin. Of course, she turned over a leaf and became one of the X-Men, shortly after this. But I'm not spoiling anything. Everybody knows that. But it says, take care, Raven Darkholm. And you, Irene. And you see a transformation to a guy with a patch here picking up a weapon. Nick Fury? Once again, utilizing her shape-changing ability, Mystique slips into the prison after the Dark Angel. I still don't understand the Dark Angel thing. But I don't read Spider-Woman comic books, so I might want to. None of her Avengers see her go. None of the Avengers see her go. None realize she's missing. They're all too busy trying to stay alive as Wonder Man's battling this giant bird of fire here created by Pyro. Pyro, transform your Phoenix into a hammer of flame when Wonder Man loops beneath the Firebird now. As good as done, love. Huh? No. You called that shot right on the button, Destiny, even though the flames don't seem to be hurting him any. No problem. You and the Limey set the sucker up, and Blob will finish him off. The Blob smokes Wonder Man. He goes flying like a missile and crashes into the prison. The guard tower. Yeah, that guard tower only marginally impeded Wonder Man's progress. His trajectory indicates that he will land somewhere in the West Bronx. I fear it will be some time before he rejoins us. And the Scarlet Witch? I'm all right, Jocasta. I just need to clear my head. Wendy's out. The witch is pretty woozy. Man, these creeps are murdering us, and they haven't even unlimbered their big gun, Rogue, yet. Take heart, Hawk. The bigger the challenge, the better I like it, and this challenge is a doozy. Cowabunga, Sweetums. The Avengers have only begun to fight. Pyro, Hawkeye will fire a smoke arrow to mask the beast's movements while he attacks the Blob. So what? No way he's going to hurt me. The smoke is dispersed, Destiny. What happens next? Oh, he flies through the air. Beast, I love it. In point of fact, Tubbo, and he says with the greatest of ease, who said, I'm not going to sing it. That's cringy. Who said I was going to hurt you? The daring young beast. I'm merely attacking you en route to my true target, Pyro. Sends the flying trapeze. Tis tis, Destiny. I do believe you've made an error. Ta-da. And for my encore, Beast, do you play chess? Natural, Mamswell, Destiny. What about it? Then you know the stratagem of sacrificing a lesser piece to take a major piece of one's foe. Huh? I love this panel with this eye here. I knew precisely what you would do and precisely where you would land. True, Pyro has a headache, but his will be nothing compared to yours. As Avalanche is bringing down, or Rogue is bringing down the remaining guard tower there on the Beast. Shoot, babe, I wanted to waste that X-Man myself. Hey, the Vision's rising out of the ground like a ghost. Synthesoid Avenger strikes with inhuman, irresistible speed, attempting the same maneuver against the Blob that he tried hours early against Rogue. Disrupting the Blob there. You scummy machine, you're hurting me, but that's all. Incredible. I have increased my density to near normal. The strain within your Blob must be endurable. Unendurable, but yet he still stands. That's more than can be said for you, Vision, honey. And Rogue comes up and smokes him in the back. Vision's down, and he isn't moving. Heck, he's lucky to still be in one piece, considering that Rogue hit him with the combined strength of Thor, Captain Cap, and Miss Marvel. If I had any smarts, I'd vamoose, but that ain't my style. Avalanche, Hawkeye mustn't fire that arrow. Gotcha, Destiny. But fast as Avalanche acts, Hawkeye acts a fraction faster, firing a screaming arrow that overloads both optic nerve and eardrum, the double shock instantly paralyzing anyone within range. The ground rising up, sweeping me away like it did our Quinjet. Lost my bow and I'm losing my arrows. In the literal blink of an eye, the archer is buried. Blob's in bad shape, Destiny, but I'm pretty much okay. Good. Things are well in hand here. The critical element lies within the prison, where Spider-Woman seeks Iron Man. She must not be allowed to restore his power. Help Mystique find her, Rogue. Slay her, or we are lost. In the main generator room, Iron Man, I presume. I'm Spider-Woman, a friend. Are you all right? Aside from my armor and my pride, nothing's damaged. After all, my years as an Avenger, after so many battles, it's somewhat mortifying to be defeated so easily. What's wrong? Why is your armor frozen? Circuitry inhibitor. That crab-legged module attached to my left shoulder. So long as it's in place, all my power systems are rendered inert. And once it's removed, I'll still need a hefty jolt of electricity to get going again. I'll try to pry it off. Careful, Spider-Woman. That thing may be booby-trapped. Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Nicholas, old friend, you're a welcome sight indeed. Likewise, I've been looking all over for you. As Iron Man whispers to Spider-Woman, Spider-Woman, the mutant who captured me, Mystique, is a shape changer, and Nick Fury is attending a NATO security conference in London. So unless he can be in two places at once, I get the picture. I thought something about Nicholas didn't feel right. I'm glad to see my suspicions confirmed. Nice try, Mystique. Rogue told me how fast and agile Spider-Woman was, but she has to be seen to be believed. I'm firing this M16 on full automatic, and my bullets aren't even coming close. Great little panel there of Mystique with the M16. Yeah, Michael Golden also did some covers. He did the G.I. Joe yearbook in 1984. Might have been 1985 when the G.I. Joe comic book was going in full force. They had that Hasbro license for Transformers and G.I. Joe. And Michael Golden actually did quite a few of the G.I. Joe covers, and they were awesome. John Byrne even did a G.I. Joe cover in the 80s, in like 84, 85, before he went to D.C. Michael Golden's forte is like military type of sci-fi and military equipment stuff. Michael Golden also did a comic book in 1986 for Marvel that I never read because I wasn't interested. Even though I knew Michael Golden was doing it, I love Michael Golden. 1986, he did a comic book named The Nam. It's like a realistic Vietnam type comic book that followed like a fictional soldier through Vietnam. It wasn't really anything that interested me because I didn't want realistic war. I preferred like G.I. Joe stuff than some kind of, and superhero stuff than some kind of more realistic type military comic book. But I guess it's really good. I've never read it. I might try to check it out sometime, but I've never read it, but it got a lot of critical praise, whatever that's worth. But I might have to check it out since, it might be worth it just for the art, even though the subject doesn't interest me when it comes to comic books. I like watching like documentaries of the military, but not really. Never mind. Is that Mystique's true resemblance? Her features resemble Nightcrawler's. Could there be a connection? She's out of ammunition. A venom blast should end our duel long before she can reload. Nothing. Incredible. I fired at close range. Mystique's also a master at like hand-to-hand combat and all that stuff. She's just not a shape changer. I can't take time to search for her while Iron Man is so vulnerable. I must do what I can to help him. Someone's running from a generator building. It's Mystique. She wouldn't be hustling like that if her mission was successful. I think I arrived to back her up in the proverbial nick of, as Iron Man smokes her. Iron Man, wait. Rogue possesses the combined power. I know the lady's capabilities, Spider-Woman, and how she acquired them. While I was the Brotherhood's prisoner, she told me everything in graphic detail. But you removed the inhibitor module, and your bioelectric venom blasts have recharged my energy cells. My armor is operating at full power. By heaven, I mean to use it. I love it. Smokes Rogue. I love how Michael Golden draws Iron Man. Oh, I love it. So good. My goodness, Sugar, you certainly are no gentleman. But then, what else can one expect from a Yankee? I felt his punch. The powers I absorbed from Thor and Captain America must be wearing off. I possess Miss Marvel's ability permanently, but I don't know if it's enough to defeat all the Avengers. Mystique's plan depended on speed and surprise. The longer the struggle continues, the worse our chances become. We must act quickly, decisively, before the tide of battle turns irrevocably against us. Give me a few more seconds to collect my wits, Destiny, and I'll fry the sanctimonious yabos. Yabos? That must be some sort of English slang or insult. I don't know. Sanctimonious yabos. Okay. Chris Claremont's from England, so originally from England. He moved over here when he was a young kid. You want time, Pyro? How about a few more years in prison? I love how he draws Scarlet Witch, too. The Scarlet Witch has the mutant ability to alter probabilities in a wild, unpredictable manner. When she casts her hex spears, literally anything can happen. In this case, an old gas main underneath the courtyard suddenly ruptures and explodes. Destiny, she's unconscious. Iron Man, I don't try to do sound effects. Iron Man's repulsor rays, they hurt Rogue. If I can twist free of her grip, done it. But the ground's so close. Have I room to glide? Iron Man, don't worry, Spider-Woman, I'll catch you. No, look at Rogue, she's weakening. I'm fading fast, and I can't absorb the powers of most of the Avengers I'm fighting. And the ones I can't affect don't have anywhere near the raw power I'll need against Iron Man. Rogue, Mystique. You're running, but what about the others? They'll be captured. So will we if we stay, Rogue. We can do our friends far more good as free agents than as fellow prisoners. Now climb aboard or be left behind. That converted plane is a top secret design. Only a handful have been built. How did Mystique ever learn of its existence, much less get a hold of one? And the inhibitor module she used on me is the latest thing in S.H.I.E.L.D. hardware. Somehow, Mystique has access to the most sophisticated weaponry in America's arsenal. Iron Man, the courtyard, look. Good grief. Oh, yes. Awesome. Scarlet Witch against Pyro here. As the main exploded, Pyro seized control of the burning gas, molding the flames into a giant creature of living fire. His intentions were brutally simple, to turn his monster loose against the Avengers and incinerate them. Seeing the danger, the Scarlet Witch cast a second hex and a third and a fourth, pouring her heart and soul into each one without being completely certain of what will happen as a result. Under her desperate onslaught, reality twisted, shattered, reformed before Pyro's disbelieving eyes. The very substance of his construct changed from living flame to unliving stone. Oh, it's a long issue. Ugh. I can't follow Mystique and help the Scarlet Witch, and since Pyro is more immediate threat, I really no choice. I'll have to let the converted plane escape. Blast. And I love this. I love this panel here with Iron Man's Michael Golden stylized repulsor outlets here. Have I said how much I like Michael Golden? Wanda's hex mutated Pyro's fire being into a statue. My repulsor ray should be the perfect method for smashing the statue into rubble. Not too shabby, Shellhead. If I ever want anything demolished, you're the guy I'll call to do it. Uh-oh, Pyro's monster has been zapped, but not the man himself. He's setting up for another try. I don't think Wanda can handle that. And if this amazing archer has anything to say about it, she won't have to try. So he hits Pyro in the head with some sort of arrow. Looks like you won't be needing my help against Pyro. Wonder Man, you're all right. Of course I am. All the blob did was hit me. Some people have all the luck. Me, I got cast as the Wicked Witch of the East in an impromptu rogue show of the Wizard of Oz. Hey, you guys, anyone see my ruby slippers? I seem to be stuck. He's referring to the building coming down on him. Yikes, what gives, fella? So Avalanche is still up. I thought this fight was over. Not by a long shot, Fuzzy. Avalanche, he's melting that wrecked guard tower in a tidal wave. The beast will be killed. Not if I can help it, Jocasta. The Hexsphere frees the beast from the window that had entrapped him. Gravity does the rest. Look out below. You think everything's going your way, don't you, heroes? Well, you still got to beat the blob. Say goodbye to your robot, sweetie, witch lady. Say goodbye to your robot, sweetie, witch lady, because I'm about to stomp him into scrap. Your description of me is imprecise, Blob. I am not a robot, but I am a synthezoid. He has to explain this and I can foil your assault simply by reducing the density of my physical form to my ephemeral state. Let us learn if you can fare as well when subjected to my thermoscopic eye blast. I love that. That ray, you're burning me. I can't see. The effect is transitory, meant solely to immobilize you. Jocasta, your assistance is required. He zaps Blob right in the face. That's awesome. Fire a full power energy blast in concert with me at the ground beneath the blob. That pit won't hold him long. The pit in and of itself is not meant to hold him at all. Wanda, direct a hex sphere at the debris formed by Avalanche's final assault. My last hex left me so weak I'm shaking. The Vision knows that, but he asks anyway. The reason must be important, which means at the very least I can do is try. Witchy, you turn the rubble into dust. Excellent, my wife. Excellent, my wife. That is precisely what is needed. Spider-Woman, I'm ahead of you, Vision. A Vision blast should rupture Wonder Man's water tower. I'd exit the courtyard, Beast, if I were you, unless you want to get very wet. So they're basically forming cement on top of and the Blob's like, holy shit, blorf. The Vision strategy works to perfection. The flash flood smashes the Blob back into the pit, while simultaneously the water combines with the powdered wreckage to form a gooey morass. The Blob soon finds himself stuck in a pool of muddy quicksand, unable to escape and in imminent danger of drowning. Seeing no alternative, he surrenders. The Blob surrenders, huh? Chapter 5, Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, Salem Center, New York, some weeks later. So the big battle is over. And the X-Men, we got the X-Men hanging out at the pool with Spider-Woman, it looks like. Is that Jessica Drew? And then you have Carol Danvers. Wolverine in the pool drinking a beer. You got Kitty Pryde and Colossus and Storm. And Michael Golden. It wouldn't be a Michael Golden comic book without him drawing some scantily clad women like he did in Micronauts with Marionette. We will stay if you wish, Carol. Thanks, Aurora, but are you all right? Are you sure you're all right? I'm not sure of anything, Jess. They suggested Morbius went here in the movie. I ended up watching Morbius, by the way. I actually kind of liked it. I mean, it's not a good movie, but the execution of Morbius I liked. I just don't like Jared Leto. When I watch Jared Leto, I go, "Oh, that guy's acting. That guy's trying to act." It just pops into my head. I can't. But the actual execution of the character, the whole movie, I was envisioning like, oh, this would be cool if he were battling Spider-Man in a movie. Like I could see some epic stuff. It's overall, it's not a good movie, but I enjoyed it. Like especially when he did his echo reload, his echo sense and all that. I like that. I like that effect. And I liked how they had him fly like he would partially be like wind, when he flies. And yeah, I like the visual of him. Yeah, that part was fine. Jared Leto I can do without. So right here they're talking to Carol Danvers. She's Karen. She's a Karen. You'll find out here. At first, no one says a word, and Carol panics, regretting letting Jessica Drew go, wondering in the sudden burst of terror shows on her face. Hi, Carol. How are you doing? Better than expected, Hank. I'll never regain all my memories, but Professor Xavier has helped me remember who I am, who and what I was. I remember my family. I remember the Avengers and how I came to leave them. Bits and pieces mostly. I've got a ways to go yet. So Rogue absorbed her memories, and she has like amnesia. But because it was like a permanent contact. I mean, they were in contact for a long time. They end up retconning in a comic book like a year or two later, where they depict that battle that happens where Rogue absorbs her ability and leads to being thrown off of the bridge at the beginning of this issue. But that never took place in any kind of comic book. But they ended up like retconning it in a couple years down the road. My friend growing up had that issue. I forget what issue. Mystique first appeared in Miss Marvel comic book. But it wasn't a Miss Marvel comic book. It was some offbeat comic book, like a one-shot thing. But I'm forgetting my manners. Please sit down. Would anyone like iced tea? I'm afraid Wolverine took the beer with him. You're looking real good, Carol. What happened to Marcus? After you left with him, we didn't expect to see you two lovebirds again. I'm sure you didn't, Hawkeye. Marcus is dead. What? We're very sorry, Carol. You two made a wonderful couple. Yeah, he was your son. Not really. We hoped you'd be happy together. Is there anything we can do to ease your pain? Didn't you do enough to cause it? There she goes, Karen. Carol, what's wrong? I'm sorry, Hank. Be not ashamed of thy womanly tears, Carol. Thou hast lost the one thou didst love. Slap. No. They just got slapped by Miss Marvel. I could see Brie Larson doing that, like Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, slapping Thor. Chris Hemsworth. I didn't love Marcus. I never loved Marcus. You said you did. Don't any of you realize what happened months ago, what Marcus did to me? Guys, maybe our visit was a mistake. Now she's blaming it on the Avengers, and she volunteered to go off with him and told the Avengers how much she loved him. Hold it. I was there, lady. You told us you cared for Marcus. Thank you, Hawkeye. Thank you. You left with him on your own free will. I left because I had no choice. Marcus gave me none. Always the victim. He was a sad, pathetic creature possessing the abilities of a god, the body of a man, the emotional maturity of a child. In limbo, his every wish was granted. He saw me, desired me. He used me as a means to escape from limbo to Earth. And when that plan failed, he took me back with him. You saw it happen, Hawkeye. You, Iron Man, and Thor. You heard his story. Marcus said that Immortus devices could bend me to his will, but he didn't want me that way. He set out to win my love, and finally, as he told you, with a subtle boost from Immortus machine, he succeeded. So she's blaming the machine that Immortus devised that manipulated her. But for all his brilliance, Marcus was careless. He made a fatal error in his calculations. When I gave birth to him, his body shifted fractionally out of sync with the rhythm of life in limbo. Where before time passed normally for him, it now passed at a fantastically accelerated rate. In days after our return, he aged years. By that time he realized what was happening, he was too old and senile to deal with it, and became Joe Biden. Within a week, he was dust. Free of his mind control, I learned enough of Immortus' secrets to allow me to transport myself home. The rest you know. So this is Chris Claremont explaining why what had happened was Chris Claremont was going to use the Carol Danvers character as kind of a slap in the face to David Michelinie for kind of killing off the character, so to speak, in Avengers 200. So this is Chris Claremont's way of saying, nope, I just undid your story, and I'm going to use this character in the X-Men for a while. And he did. He ended up starting the following year. He ended up bringing Carol Danvers into the X-Men because he wanted to play off of the conflict he had with the Rogue character. And he thought it would make storyline. Now I'm just kind of coming up with this. This is something that I just kind of I'm kind of coming to a conclusion on that. I don't know if that was actually the case, but I mean the evidence of why they did this story right here, it kind of and then he months later went on to use Carol Danvers, and then we know that Carol Danvers was not Miss Marvel anymore. She became Binary and had it out with Rogue, and she left the X-Men and got pissed off at Charles Xavier for accepting Rogue into the X-Men because they had such a hatred for each other. So she felt betrayed now, not only by the Avengers, but then she felt victimized by the X-Men shortly down the road. So, and then she was subjected to the Brood, that alien race that had conflict with the X-Men, and then she was transformed into a more powerful being called Binary, and she took her revenge on Rogue and beat the crap out of Rogue as Binary because she couldn't do it as Miss Marvel. So that's kind of my surmising of what happened, like anybody would give a shit. So she had a choice. She chose not to be manipulated by the machine by threat, and she didn't go along. She'd be manipulated by the machine, so she chose to go along with it. Yeah, I wouldn't even bother reading Avengers 200. It's not a good story. Like I said, this is Chris Claremont slapping David Michelinie in the face. Like, yeah, I know your story was shit, but I'm going to revive this character that they essentially killed off. So, and then I'm going to transform her into a new character, Binary. So that's the origin of Binary. And it all stems out of this and her hatred for Rogue. And Rogue, like I said, kind of buried the hatchet. Like she didn't have any more hatred toward, when she joined the X-Men, she she understood that she was just doing Mystique's bidding, and then she had no grudge against Carol Danvers, but Carol Danvers couldn't let it go. So, Wanda, I never wanted to see you again, any of you again. I hated you because when I needed you most, you betrayed me. How? How? I mean, they're setting Carol Danvers up to be such an unlikable character. I can hear every word she says. There's such agony in her voice, Charles. I want to go to her, stand beside her, help her. So do I, Jessica. But for our friend's sake, for Carol, we must not. You know, I turned to you for help, and I got jokes. Huh? There, I don't remember this. There I was, pregnant by an unknown source, running through a 9-month term, literally overnight, confused, terrified, shaken to the core of my being as a hero, a person, a woman. I turned to you for help, and I got jokes. The wasp thought it was great, and the beast offered to play teddy bear. Your concerns were for the baby, not for how it came to be, nor of the cost to me of that conception. You took everything Marcus said at face value. You didn't question. You didn't doubt. You simply let me go with a smile and a wave and a bouncy bon voyage. That's not what happened. No, they were suspicious of Marcus. They were suspicious of the whole thing. They questioned what was going on. And she acted like she didn't want to go into it. She didn't ask for help, or she didn't raise any suspicions about Marcus. Delusional woman. And that was your mistake, for which I paid the price. My mistake was trusting you. And they're all sitting here going, no, of course they're all looking like, oh, that's not what happened. After a trauma like mine, it's easy to wallow in bitterness and self-pity, but both grief and guilt had to be faced, dealt with, exercised. Believe all Danvers. That's not what happened. I've read Avengers 200. If you do that even a little, then perhaps what I went through will have a positive meaning. It's your choice. Carol, what about you? What will you do? Pick up the pieces of my life, start again, survive. I'm good at that. You're good at playing victim, Karen. Carol, I would give anything for this never to have happened. I think they're talking. I think that's Chris Claremont's little underhanded way of saying, yeah, Avengers 200 should have never happened. We are so sorry. I know, Wanda. Don't worry. I'll be all right. Oh, after that emotional scene. What a narcissistic fucking sociopath. That's the only, I know it's just a comic book character, but it's more to that. It's more than that to me. Oh, later aboard the Quinjet en route to Manhattan. There's great sadness about you, Wanda. I keep thinking, Vision, what if Marcus had chosen me? He sought only to do good, yet instead we caused irreparable harm. No matter where the Avengers go from here or what we do, things will never again be as sure, as certain, as safe. Bullshit. I suddenly feel vulnerable in ways I never imagined. Carol was my friend, Vision, and you failed her. Chris Claremont is just freaking killing the Avengers right now. Oh my God. Yes. What hurts as deeply as the realization that I'm even capable of such a failure. Wanda, remember what Carol told us. Heed her words. Today we have faced some harsh truths about ourselves. But just as a sword goes through fire to temper and harden the blade, so will we, as individuals and Avengers, emerge from this travail stronger and more resilient than before. And next time, perhaps, should there be next time, we will not fail. Both we and Carol have been granted a second chance, my love. Let us use it well. Finished. That is Avengers Annual number 10. Oh boy. Avengers Annual number 10. I am going to go back to the cover page of that. The Al Milgrom cover does not do it justice. once again, I always love this issue. Um, I always thought the Rogue. I love seeing the Avengers battle the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. It's kind of the best of both worlds. That was always one of my favorite things about the X-Men was the especially the new Brotherhood. I like the Blob and Pyro, and I love the Rogue character. First time I was like, I want to see more of this character. Yeah, but it's kind of weird. That whole ending just kind of is a head scratcher to me. I mean, I understand what Chris Claremont's doing there, though. I mean, you have to kind of know some of the politics going on in Marvel, which it's kind of weird, but as soon as at this point of me like buying comic books and reading and collecting comic books, I'm 11 years old when this comes out. My first thing I do when I get a comic book and get it home, I would go to the fan mail page. The first thing I would do before I'd read the story, I'd go to the fan mail page, and I would read through what other people thought Danvers too. Yeah, I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, it's a pretty cool issue. I mean, the art really makes it. If that was Al Milgrom, I wouldn't be covering this issue if Al Milgrom did the artwork. I mean, Michael Golden really. Anything I can do with Michael Golden, I gotta find that Spider-Man, Star Wars. Where's my Marvel Unlimited app here? I've got my app on my Stream Deck tied in, and I think I've got it all I think I've got every Star Wars in my library. I just want to show like another thing of Michael Golden real quick. They were definitely setting up Miss Marvel to be unlikable. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, here we go. Number 38, Michael Golden. The only issue of Star Wars that he did. This would have had to have been 1980 as well. I can't remember if this is after Empire or I'm not going to go through this comic book. I'm just going to show a couple panels. Archie Goodwin, Michael Golden, plotter, penciler, Terry Austin, inker. Ooh. And you'll be able to see Terry Austin has a lighter touch, but Terry Austin's the premier inker. I mean, in the history of comic books, in my opinion. I mean, there's some legendary inkers like Dick Giordano and Mike Esposito and there's, Klaus Johnson, but Terry Austin is like the guy that everyone tries to emulate when it comes to the inking style. But I mean, look at the TIE Fighter. It's just good. I mean, look at this interior. Look at this style they've got of this interior of there's Luke and Leia, Michael Golden style. But I just love this depiction of how he does the detail on the Imperial ships and on the cockpit, just the style of the cockpit. I'm not necessarily saying it's a great issue, but just with Terry Austin, I just love this style. It's just awesome. But that's just a little, and this isn't like a great issue or anything. I just wanted to show Michael Golden's. I wish Terry Austin would have been Michael Golden's inker on Micronauts. Joseph Rubenstein's good. I mean, but he's got a heavier like line than Terry Austin does. And it kind of takes away a little bit from the art. But anyway, that was Avengers Annual number 10, and that was fun. I love reading that book. I read that book a bunch when I was a kid, because by that time we were X-Men nuts. We were all into the X-Men and any kind of cameo or the Brotherhood of. Yeah, and to my recollection, that's the only time during this era that like the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants ever encountered the Avengers. And of course, you get the first appearance of Rogue. So I wish I would have held on to my issue, but I did not. I lost it along with the majority of my collection back in the day. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up right there because man, that was a lot of reading. It took longer than I thought it was going to, which I don't really care. I don't mind, but that was a lot of reading. That's a king size annual issue. So they were definitely setting Miss Marvel up to be very unlikable. Yes, definitely. And they did not disappoint. In the future, they did not disappoint. And she was unlikable in the X-Men as well when she had that little run in the X-Men. But I mean, the character of Binary, what they turned her into is cool. But she still had that harbored ill, and then she turned against the X-Men. She was like, I can't believe you guys would even accept Rogue into your ranks after knowing our history and all that stuff. So, all right. So anyway, I'm going to call it a night on the old Bronze Age comic books. I'm kind of debating whether to do another one tomorrow night or wait till the following weekend. Probably be waiting for the following weekend. I'm thinking about covering a couple Captain Americas. And eventually I'm going to get around to a few Iron Man. I'm going to do Iron Man Demon in the Bottle, that David Michelinie, John Romita Jr. run of the late 70s Iron Man, which would include the Demon in the Bottle. And there's kind of an interesting little story about one of the panels in that issue that leads up to Demon in the Bottle. It's the issue before Demon in the Bottle. So I'll figure something out and I'll post which one. But yeah, thanks for hanging out. And I am going to sign off. So I will see you later.